The following program is brought to you by TZ Productions, offering 40 years of media experience.
The Alvin and Rosalie Sarachek Trust, supporting arts, history, science, and this program on KPTS.
We talk life, love, and career, and have some fun along the way. This week, we go one-on-one with a highly acclaimed Kansan who stays grounded while keeping his head in the clouds. He is one of Kansas' best-known television personalities and most respected weathercasters. Jay Prater has won award after award for meteorological excellence on KAKE-TV. Prater came to Wichita by way of Alabama, Florida, and Tennessee, where he perfected his talents before landing here in Tornado Alley. Viewers have come to rely on Prater's calm and deliberate demeanor to help them survive the treachery of Kansas storms. But there's more to talk about than the weather. Prater is an accomplished pilot, ham radio operator, and a video gamer. And there's more. So sit back and enjoy the ride. Meteorologist Jay Prater is here for the full half hour, one-on-one. Thanks so much for joining us. I'm Victor Hogstrom, and I'm delighted to welcome my friend Jay Prater to the table. Jay, welcome.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me here.
Now, in my introduction of you, I said that you've won so many awards, and these awards are important, especially here in Kansas. It's a big deal. Why?
Because it's Tornado Alley. Everybody, you know, the weather, not only is it a big deal because it's severe and potentially life-threatening, this is a very large area to cover. You know, our market goes all the way to the Colorado state line, so it's a big chunk of turf to keep an eye on.
So you got into the weather business. Why weather?
Because it scared the heck out of me. It scared me to death. April 3rd, 1974, the super outbreak. Biggest outbreak of tornadoes in recorded history in the United States at that time. And here I am in 4th grade in my bedroom with my AM radio listening to the tornado warnings start to come out in western Mississippi, then across parts of eastern Mississippi, then into Alabama. And I hear report after report, Guin, the town being destroyed, and that tornado moving towards Huntsville. And I even recorded on my little cassette recorder all of the interruptions. When I heard the EBS, the Emergency Broadcast System tone, I would start my recorder and I would listen to WAPI 1070 and Wendell Harris, the anchor, repeat the tornado warnings as they moved across the state. That scared the heck out of me that night. And that's when I wanted to learn more about the weather.
So when it's scary, Jay is interested.
Yeah, I'm sure you can ask some psychiatrists that, you know, a good way to confront your fears is to learn more about it. And I think that's what happened to me. It was that night that I really got focused on weather and learning more about the weather. I was going to the library, checking out every book I could.
And this was in Birmingham, Alabama?
I was in Birmingham.
And that's where you're from?
That's home. And 74 was the super outbreak. And then 6 years later, as I get into high school, I run into this new kid who just moved in from Tampa, whose dad happened to be the news director at the ABC affiliate in Birmingham. And I was like, you know what? I've always been interested in television weather. And through him, I wound up going to WBRC, Channel 6, the ABC affiliate, watching a newscast. And I was like, that's what I want to do for a living.
And you began the weather business.
And I was so lucky that Mike Royer, who was the weathercaster at the time, was kind enough to keep inviting me back up to Channel 6. So I was kind of unofficially doing an internship with him. He helped me helped me order instruments, actually set up a weather station. I was taking readings in my backyard. I had a maximum thermometer, minimum thermometer, sling hygrometer to dehumidity. So I was, I was very geeked out on weather.
Wow, and so where did you study the art of weather reporting?
Well, okay. I did it the wrong way.
Or the science?
I did it the wrong way. My goal was to go to Auburn University, study radio and television, get into Air Force ROTC, and learn meteorology through the Air Force while I was learning radio and television. Well, you know what? I realized very quickly that the Air Force lifestyle was not going to be for me. And fortunately, Mississippi State University started a meteorology program. So I learned radio and television while at Auburn, and then meteorology through Mississippi State.
So you've worked in several markets.
Right. Birmingham was home.
Yes, Birmingham, of course, you began there.
And you talk about getting lucky. How often are you able to start in your hometown to do television? And plus, Birmingham isn't a small town. It's not a huge market, but it's a good-sized market. So for me to be able to start working weekends at home was incredible. I got to thank Tom Roberts at the time, who was the news director, who gave me a shot and gave me my break on television. And I was there for 5 to 7 years before I moved on. It was an excellent training ground. Went through the blizzard of '93. Now for Birmingham, this was a big deal. Mm-hmm. In 24 hours, we picked up 13 inches of snow.
Oh, boy.
So in one day, we broke the season record total snowfall for Birmingham. And that experience landed me on the network. I was on NBC National News overnight that night, stuck atop Red Mountain, knee-deep in the snow, reporting on what was going on in Birmingham. We already had the local angle covered, and so NBC opened up a satellite window, so I was feeding the network and all the NBC O&Os up and down the coast.
Wow. And then you worked in several other markets, including Florida, Tennessee.
And then here. Yeah, from Birmingham, I was the weekend meteorologist. My first chief job was in Huntsville, Alabama at WAFF 48, just a 90-minute drive up I-65 from home. Right. So it was nice being close to my parents. But Alabama is in what we call Dixie Alley. People forget, we're here in the plains. This is the tornado alley. But the southeast has a high incidence of not only tornadoes, but tornado mortality because of nocturnal tornadoes, because of increased use of mobile homes. So it's a very weather-sensitive part of the country to be in. And coming into Channel 48, I was replacing a gentleman named Bob Barron, who after the '89 tornado in Huntsville, created a lot of the weather technology you see on television. He stopped doing TV weather to form a company. And so I came in behind him into a market that was very aggressive in terms of covering severe weather, very proactive. And it was an awesome place to be the boss for the first time.
And from Huntsville?
From Huntsville, I went to Nashville, Tennessee.
As the chief?
As the chief at Channel 4 WSMV. Now the thing about Channel 4, I was coming in, there was a gentleman named Bill Hall. Mm-hmm. This guy is so popular. We're talking Willard Scott. You know how people love Willard Scott. We're talking a personality that people just didn't like, they loved. And Bill had announced he was going to retire. And so they said, okay, well, as Bill starts to slow down, we're going to kind of bring you in and we're going to make this lovely transit. Well, that didn't happen. Sometimes plans don't work in this business. And the news director that brought me in at the time was watching me off air in Huntsville. And he was like, we want to get more aggressive with severe weather. We like what Huntsville's doing. We want to bring that to Nashville. And I found out that that was a tough sell. So I was there for one contract. Bill Hall announced that, you know what, I don't think I'm going to retire right away. And I saw the handwriting on the wall. Right. And so it was like, no, okay, we're going to go in a different direction now. And then that's how I wound up in Panama City Beach, Florida.
And from there to?
From there to KAKE.
KAKE. So why Wichita?
Because I picked up the phone. I was working, I was working mornings in Panama City Beach, Florida. The phone rang. I was filling in for the chief, and I answer it, and it's Terry Cole, the general manager at KAKE-TV in Wichita, Kansas. And he's looking for my boss in Panama City. He says, I got some radar questions I need answered. I am new here, I'm the brand new general manager, and I said, I can answer those radar questions for you. And he goes, well, Jason, who was my boss, Jason Kelly, goes, well, Jason used to work for Barron. I want to talk to Jason. I said, he's off today, and trust me, I can answer any question that Jason could. And we had a conversation. And at the end of it, he said, you know what? We may need a new chief meteorologist here in Wichita. Do you know anybody? And I said, I sure do. And I recommended Brad Travis, who was working in Huntsville, Alabama, a native Kansan. I actually recommended somebody for the job. Turns out didn't work out, and so I picked up the phone and called him and said, all right, I'm interested. And next thing you know, I'm on a plane and I'm in Wichita.
And that was how many years ago?
About 14.
14?
Yes.
Wow. And you've been here since?
Yeah, we came here and I interviewed in the dead of winter, and Wichita does not present its most beautiful face to the world when you come in the dead of winter. So we didn't really know what to expect, but after we relocated here, it didn't take long before we learned to love the quality of life.
And you have a family?
Yeah, I got married here in Wichita. Both of our children were born here, so we consider ourselves as Kansan as anybody else now.
Right. So let's talk about the role you play in the lives of your children every morning. You used to take them to the bus stop.
I used to walk to the bus stop.
Rain or shine.
Because, because the bus stop was at the end of the cul-de-sac, so that was a long walk. No, but eventually the kids got tired of the bus, but I take them to school just about every morning. So I like having that interaction with them.
Right.
And,
spending quality time.
Get a little music going in the car, try to get everybody pumped up in the right mood before they hit the door and go to class.
So tell us about your family. Your wife?
My wife and I met in Nashville. Right. During my stop. It's like I tell people, even though the career part didn't work out while I was in Nashville, I wound up with a wife. So it was a good move to go to Nashville. Right. And she's from Texas originally, and she was from a small town, Ballinger, in West Texas. So she really loves being here in Wichita. She's currently the development director for a nonprofit. And that's a role that she really enjoys and fits her personality very well.
Now, Jay, you've worked in the weather. You spend a lot of time providing information to us on television. How has weather reporting changed over the years?
The remote sensing has been incredible. When I first got into the business back in the late 80s, TV stations, a few of them owned Doppler radars. The National Weather Service did not have Dopplerized radar. Those didn't start coming online until the early 90s, and we take that for granted now. So the ability to use weather radar with a very fine resolution and having Doppler to see the wind pattern inside of a storm, and now that we have dual polarization radar, we can actually see whether or not there's been debris lofted. That has probably been the biggest advance forward in terms of nowcasting. It's going on now. Mm-hmm. As far as forecasting, numerical weather prediction, computer modeling has exploded. I mean, when I first started this business, you would get these charts almost a yard wide and put them down on the table. You pull out the colored pencil and you would actually highlight the areas of moisture and pressure, and you'd hang the charts on the wall. Everything's computerized now. And these computer models have gotten so good that you can't ignore them. One time, Chuck Doswell, who's very well known in the weather industry, used to call it meteorological cancer, looking at computer modeling. Well, it's evolved to the point where you can't ignore computer modeling. It's become that good.
All right. So that's talking about the weather, but okay. Tell us about television.
Oh, the television part of it.
Yes.
See, this is the...
How has that changed?
Well, the industry's changed because the audience is more fractured than ever. It used to be a handful of channels coming into the home. Cable provided even more channels. So now we're not only competing with cable, with satellite, we're competing with internet, we're competing with social media. So we're taking the same, pie, and we slice the slices even thinner. It's tough to compete. Plus, social media, you can take somebody that is not a meteorologist, but just kind of a fan of weather, and they'll throw a very incorrect statement about what may happen again in the future. And if it gets enough likes and it becomes viral, suddenly you find yourself putting out fires of things that were started on social media that weren't true to begin with, instead of people coming to you as a trusted source for weather information. So competing with social media is tough.
So what do you do differently, Jay, as a chief meteorologist, what do you do differently to keep the viewers tuned into you day after day when the viewer can, as you know,
right,
can get that instant weather reporting on his handheld device?
Oh yeah, you can grab the app and you can scroll through the app, and it's instant gratification.
Right.
And we're in an instant gratification society.
That's right.
The role I must play and that we must play is I got to give you more information about the weather than what you can get on the app. Not just the hard forecast, but that app does not give you confidence. It will give you a deterministic, here's what is going to happen at this time, but it doesn't tell you, you know what, it's a lock. This is definitely going to happen. And other days, there's a couple of variables here where I'm not confident in this. You'll never get confidence from an app. So I have to go beyond the app, and hopefully I have to be a trusted source. You know, a lot of people kind of get on the broadcast weatherman as being, you know, hype. I've always tried to hit the bullseye. I've always preached hit the bullseye with my entire staff, because that hype, it doesn't keep you any loyal viewers long term.
Right. So tell me this. We hear a lot now about climate change. It's becoming highly political.
Right.
Is it fake news or is it real?
The worst thing to happen with climate change was for Al Gore to get involved.
Oh, boy.
Because it politicized it. It doesn't matter left or right. That politicized the issue immediately. This isn't a political issue. This is an issue of science. Carbon dioxide has a residence time in the atmosphere. Carbon dioxide vibrates at a certain frequency where when you trap it in the atmosphere, it will trap heat. Now, so does methane. There are other gases involved here too. It's not just carbon dioxide. There's carbon dioxide, there's methane, that are other things that if we keep increasing in the atmosphere's response will be to warm. This isn't fake news, it's science. Now, what has become political is, how do you address the problem? Suddenly, it's become political, because do we tax our way into fixing the atmosphere? Do we try to find a way to sequester carbon and methane directly out of the atmosphere with a technology that doesn't exist yet? So that's where it becomes politicized. But as far as the science of methane, carbon dioxide, do they trap heat in the atmosphere? Yes, that's fact.
So why is our government not, and I don't want us to become political, but why is our government not looking at it as a realistic or a real problem that we have?
Oh, they are. They are. If you ask the Joint Chiefs, they will tell you that the #1 threat to this country is climate change, because if you're in charge of the Navy, all of your ports, all of your supports, suddenly they have the potential to, when there's high tide and when there's hurricanes, become more vulnerable. No, no, no. The military is already addressing the potential for climate change. So even though, you know, maybe between Congress and the executive branch, you're hearing different opinions, within the wheels of government, steps are already being taken as we speak to deal with what the future will bring.
So with all of the challenges that you have, viewership and the instant gratification lifestyle that we all live today to get the weather right away, and the work and the technology and climate change, what do you enjoy about your job?
I enjoy my job because it's a little of everything. I like television. Well, what we're doing here today, we're sitting here in front of a camera. There is an aspect of television, which I enjoy, the performance art, if you will. Wow. Plus, there's the science geekery of forecasting the weather itself. And I'm a bit of a computer geek, so I also get to do a little IT at work. So I got IT, I got weather, you got television. There's a lot of disciplines that cross over. So it makes it a very satisfying, for me, profession to be in.
Anything you hate about it?
Oh, consultants. And unfortunately, we've had consultants come into the business and try to create cookie cutter stations. Instead of having individual flavor, they take one little nugget of success they see in another market, and they're going to tell you how to do it. And I understand a little bit of that's normal, but at the same time, we've done so much research that we try to give the audience what we think they're going to want based on research, instead of kind of doing some occasional grassroots, seeing what develops, and seeing if the audience then is attracted to it.
So let's play my favorite thing.
Okay.
The game that I like to play with people on the show.
All right.
Because it has a certain psychological revealing moment.
Victor's Rorschach test is what it is.
Is that what it is? All right, let's do this.
Okay.
The game is I'll give you a pick of 2 words, and you pick one.
Okay.
All right.
Do I have to pick one?
Yeah, just one.
Okay. I'm not under oath, but all right.
Summer or winter?
Summer.
Why?
You know what? Snow is great in small doses, but I just prefer the sunshine and the warmth.
Spring or fall?
Fall. fall. Fall is less violent than spring, even though we have a second severe season. There's not as much severe weather, and I just like as the coolness starts to increase, the little refreshing, this is what's coming. I like that.
Tennis or golf?
Golf, just because I'm lousy at tennis and I'm lousy at golf too, but if I had to pick between the two, at least golf gets you out on a course, and usually there's beverages along the course.
Okay. Football or basketball?
Football.
Oh,
Absolutely. I'm an SEC person.
That's
Southeastern
right.
Conference.
That's right.
Love football. There's
Alabama football too.
No, don't say that.
Oh,
Thank you. Auburn.
Auburn, that's right.
Yes, thank you. I mean, yes, the state
yeah,
of Alabama.
I did meet your father once.
Yes.
And he's all Auburn.
Absolutely.
And you too.
And moving to Big 12 country, and especially being in Kansas, you have to appreciate the basketball prowess at WSU and KU, and with flashes of brilliance at K-State.
All right, so you're from the South. Yeah. Sushi or fried catfish?
Sushi.
Oh.
Yes. So I have never developed a taste for catfish. My father, on the other hand, is a huge proponent of it, but no, I love sushi.
Cumulus or stratus?
Oh, depends on my mood. Cumulus, I would rather have broken stratus than cumulus, because if I'm going to bother to go flying, there's less bumps in the sky with the stratus.
Very good. You passed the test.
I'm glad to hear it. Do I get a report later, or is this emailed to me? Or okay.
Yeah, it'll be emailed to you.
I appreciate that.
You mentioned flying. You are a pilot.
Yeah,
You own your own airplane.
A 1961 Skyhawk that was built here in Wichita at the Pawnee factory. I picked it up online. There's a website called barnstormers.com. Think of it as Craigslist for used airplanes. Mm-hmm. And I found it down in Texas, and it's had a little bit of an interesting history, and I'm proud to be its current owner.
So did you ever plan to own your own plane when you were growing up, or become a pilot?
I did. If I wasn't going to be a television weather person, it was going to be an airline pilot. That was my other dream. And it's nice because weather and flying, I mean, again, things that commingling and they dovetail with each other. So it's been awesome. I got my my private pilot certificate in 1988. Now, I haven't been flying every year since then. It's kind of been on again, off again. But after moving to the air capital, I found myself reinvigorated and started flying again, and then went online. And then what I did, okay, this is funny. When I got my private pilot's certificate in '88, there was a company, a mutual fund company, saying, you know what, you can do as little as $50 a month. So I said, okay. So I threw in $50 a month, and that was my airplane fund. 3 years ago, it had enough money in it to buy an airplane. Oh. So so I have the $50 a month airplane. That's what I like to call it.
And you enjoy flying?
Absolutely.
Where do you fly?
I'm based over at Augusta, which is halfway between Andover and Augusta. So I primarily, when I'm just me and the machine, I'm over Butler County near El Dorado Lake, going over towards Burns, enjoying that part of town. But I've flown all over Kansas.
So what interested you in flying airplanes? Because most of us are afraid.
You know what? That's a good question. Unlike the weather thing where I had that event, I mean, that was clearly, April 3rd, '74. I cannot tell you when my fascinations with airplane, if there was a certain moment, but when I was young, I remember building models, and I would build model airplanes, and I would bug my parents to take me down to the Birmingham Municipal Airport, and I would watch planes, fly. And one of the biggest thrills in my life was when I was in middle school, and some friends that we used to know moved to Dallas. I got to go out to Dallas, and that was on a Delta DC-9, and I think I was more excited about the flight back and forth to the brand new DFW airport. Right. It had just opened. Than the trip itself. I was more excited about the plane. Wow.
And you do more than plane flying or weather. You love video games.
Is
that a hobby?
Yeah, it's funny. At one time, I would probably have considered it a hobby, but since I've had kids, that has taken a back seat. Yeah, I still probably have the Xbox Live gamer tag somewhere, but I haven't used it in a while. I used to really enjoy video gaming a lot, but the demands of children, that kind of console kind of sits and gathers dust now.
So you play with your son?
No. Currently, I don't.
You don't?
I don't want to get him into the video game at this juncture. I want to let him mature a little more.
Discover it himself.
Yes.
I see. When was the last time Jay Prater cried?
Last year. I lost a close friend of mine to colon cancer.
What is the meaning of life then to Jay Prater with that experience and everything else you've done in life?
The older I get, the more that you come to the realization and you're humbled by what you don't know. When you're young, you're impressed with what you do.
So true.
And the older I get, the more I cherish time on earth, just being here, being in the moment. It is regrettable that we have to have jobs in order to make family and everything else happen. I enjoy my work, but I would love it if I had a job where I would spend even more time with my family. But I like my craft, and I'm hoping that I'll be able to work it until retirement.
What about laughing? What makes you laugh?
Dry wit, sarcasm. I'm a very dry wit. If you don't know me personally, some people think I'm being offensive. Where no, I'm just really making a joke. So until somebody gets to know me,
you have a joke you want to share?
Not on camera. No. but maybe after the show. But no, I've got a pretty dry, and some would call it an acerbic wit at times. So I love stupid movies sometimes. Like Dumb and Dumber is no work of art,
Right.
but it's awfully funny in spots.
Right. Your happiest moments in life. What has been that one time you've been so happy that you never forget it?
Well, getting married.
That should make your wife happy to hear that.
And that happened here at the Scottish Rite. We got married here in Wichita, but I mean that was a very happy moment. Getting my private pilot's license, passing that check ride, sitting on pins and needles. The examiner tells you land the plane, straight face,
Right.
no emotion, park the plane. You turn off the key, and he reaches over and said, "Congratulations, you're a private pilot." And I was like, "Thank you." So that was another very satisfying moment in my life.
What makes Jay Prater tick?
Well, I like small planes. I love my kids. And I like my job. I'm one of those people, I really enjoy what I do for a living. Going into the office and knowing that I've done my job well, I get satisfaction from.
On that note, Jay Prater, thank you.
It's my pleasure, Victor. Thank you so much for having me here.
Thank you for being here.
Certainly.
It was certainly a pleasure to have Jay Prater with us. Thank you for watching this week's edition of One on One. If you have a question or comment, send it to us via email at oneonone@kpts.org. We'll love to hear from you. We'll see you back here next week with another edition of One on One. Until then, I'm Victor Hogstrom. Thanks for watching.
The Alvin and Rosalie Sarachek Trust, supporting arts, history, science, and this program on KPTS.
The preceding program was brought to you by TZ Productions, offering 40 years of media experience.